Alright, so number 3 on the review says sine of x over cosecant of x plus cotangent of x. So what I want to do is I want to multiply top and bottom by the conjugate of the denominator. Remember what the conjugate is? It's basically the same expression except for the middle sign changes. So when I multiply by the conjugate, what is the conjugate of the denominator? Cosecant of x minus cotangent of x, correct. So therefore I'm going to have cosecant of x minus cotangent of x over cosecant of x minus cotangent of x. So let me go ahead and make that smaller so it can fit into one line. Alright, so there we go. So now we have two fractions, top times top and bottom times bottom. Okay, so for the top part, I basically am just going to put them together. So I'm left with sine of x times cosecant of x minus cotangent of x. Okay, and then when we multiply bottom times bottom, it's going to be a difference of squares. And remember what we said about difference of squares. All we do basically with difference of squares, because they're the same thing except for the signs are different in the middle, we do first times first. So what is cosecant of x times cosecant of x? Right, cosecant squared of x minus, because a plus times a minus gives us a minus. What is cotangent of x times cotangent of x? Cotangent squared of x. Good. Okay, from this bottom we can kind of decipher that it's some type of Pythagorean identity. So let's go ahead and write our Pythagorean identity. If you remember, and you should remember, that Pythagorean identity is 1 plus cotangent squared theta, or x, equals cosecant squared of x. Okay, so that's our identity, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight it so that you won't get it confused with your actual problem. Okay, as you can see on the bottom part of our problem, we want my cosecant squared and my cotangent squared to be close together with one another. So therefore I'm going to need to move it to the other side. So when I move this plus cotangent squared of x to the other side, it becomes what? Minus cotangent squared of x, correct. So I'm going to be left with the identity of 1 equals minus cotangent squared of x. Okay, so now do I see this expression anywhere in my problem? I think I do. It's right here in my denominator. Cosecant squared of x minus cotangent squared of x. And what is that equal to according to our highlighted equation? It's equal to 1, exactly. So I can go ahead and substitute the bottom for what? 1. Good. Okay, so all of this is going to go away and it's going to be basically 1. Okay, since anything is over 1, basically I'm just left with the numerator, right? So all I do from here is just stay with the numerator part. So all I did was just Copy down my numerator. Okay, so from here, all I have left to do is to distribute this sine of x to everything inside the parentheses. When I distribute the sine of x times the cosecant of x, what do I get? Sine of x times cosecant of x. And then what's sine of x times negative cotangent of x? Negative sine of x cotangent of x. There we go. Okay, so that's what I get once I distribute. Okay, my last and final step is to go ahead and rewrite the cosecant and the cotangent part right here into their appropriate terms. So if I do that, I get cosecant of x to be equal to what? 1 over sine of x minus sine of x times, and what is cotangent? How can I express cotangent? Okay, I want to express it as cosine of x over sine of x. Okay, let's take a look at this first term right here. What happens to my sine of x's? Perfect, they cancel out. So what does that leave me here? It leaves me with the 1. And then, what happens to our sine of x's right here in this second term? They also cancel out, and it only leaves me with a what? Cosine of x. So our answer, simplified, is 1 minus cosine of x. Okay, so let's go ahead and scroll up and make sure you understand this problem. We had sine of x over cosecant of x plus cotangent of x. I did here was multiply by the conjugate of the denominator. Remember that I said conjugate was the exact same expression except for the middle sign change. So I multiplied it by cosecant of x minus cotangent of x. And since I can't change my problem, I have to divide by the exact same thing. That left me with 2 fractions, so I did top times top. And when I do top times top, all I did was just put them together. Then the bottom, I knew it was a difference of squares because it's the exact same thing, except for the signs are in the middle are different. So I did first times first, and cosecant of x times cosecant of x is cosecant squared of x, positive cotangent of x times negative cotangent of x. A positive times a negative gives me a negative, and then cotangent times cotangent is cotangent squared of x. From there, I should be able to determine that my bottom is some kind of Pythagorean identity, which was 1 plus cotangent squared of x equals cosecant squared of x, and that's the highlighted part. I want my cosecant squared of x to be with my cotangent squared, so I moved all that, and I got 1 equals cosecant squared of x minus cotangent squared of x. So now I can replace this in my problem with what it's worth, and what is that equal to? 1. So I'll replace all of this with 1 right here. That left me with basically just the top part because anything over 1 is simply itself. So I was left with this. From there, I distributed the sign to both parts. So sine of x times cosecant of x is sine of x cosecant of x. And sine of x times negative cotangent of x gives me negative sine of x cotangent of x. My last part was to rewrite cosecant right here into 1 over sine, and then cotangent into cosine over sine right here. Okay, on the first term, my sines canceled out, which only left me with 1, and I brought it down. I brought down my minus sign, and then my sines canceled out to only leave me with cosine of x. and that's what I have as my simplified version. 1 minus cosine of x. Alright, I repeat one more time. These two problems are due, so go ahead and turn in your review sheet. Make sure your name is on it. In your tray, the rest of this class period you will have to briefly review, and around 8:10 or 8:15 you will go ahead and take your quiz. The quiz should not take you more than 15 minutes long, if even that. It should take you less than 5 minutes if you studied, less than 10 minutes if you didn't. Okay, Fred, one more time, Frederick Wright, I want you to please make sure that you turn off my projector. You're going to have to press the power button twice. So make sure you turn that off for me so that it won't overheat. Alright, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, and if you have any questions, you know how to reach me. I will not have tutorials today because I have a department meeting. Alright, have a good day.